Welcome, everyone. I'm Kristine Fisher, your host of this edition of Cape Ann ARTWaves. This program is coming to you by way of 1623 Studios, located in Gloucester, Massachusetts, on beautiful Cape Ann, known for attracting artists for centuries. Each week, we have the opportunity to meet and learn from talented artists and makers. Today, I'm so happy to welcome my special guest, Terry Del Percio Piemonte, who is a very gifted contemporary visual artist. Terry began to only share her abstract and expressionistic work with the world in public only 7 years ago, and honestly, it would have been our loss had she not. She has created impressive momentum in a very short period of time, receiving award recognition and showing her work in multiple galleries on the North Shore and beyond. Terry is also a member of the National Association of Women in the Arts. Welcome, Terry.
Hello, nice to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. We want to extend a warm welcome. I think a good place for us to start would be to talk about your journey and how you discovered your enjoyment for making art. And let's also talk about a couple of the key influencers who have helped to develop your talent along the way.
Okay. Well, as far back as I can remember, I was always a loner, so all I did was read and draw. And my mom was a smoker back in the 1950s when everybody smoked. And we always had matchbooks all around the house. And inside those matchbooks were usually little drawing contests. So they'd give you an address and they'd give you a little bit of a picture and you'd have to copy it and send it in and you might win something. So I would do that all the time. And I won a few fishing poles. And that's where I started. And then I was always interested in things that look different. That sounds odd, probably. But when I was in high school, I was so excited to take my first art class. And you know, we started the first few days and then all of a sudden my teacher said something negative about what I did. And that was the end. I was done. So I dropped the class. So I want all the teachers out there to know that you can say one little thing and it makes a big impact. But anyway, I really got started in photography because one of my boyfriends in high school, not that I had many, but bought me a really good camera. And that really set me off. I was really very fascinated with photography for years. And then later on, I went to Art New England and took one of their intensive programs, learning how to develop in the darkroom. And it was 24/7. You could use the darkroom all night long. And that really changed my perspective on seeing things and really expanded my interest in art. And it wasn't until later on that I started doing watercolor painting. And really when I moved up to Cape Ann is when I really started having some mentors and taking workshops and courses. And then I started playing around with collage. So my path is circuitous. It's kind of all over the place, but that's how I got here.
Just like all of us. I love it. How about mentioning a couple of your current mentors?
Oh gosh, now I work with Nella Lush, who I'm sure most everyone knows.
Yeah.
And Susan Guest McPhail is the person who taught me how to be free. In other words, not worry about what you're supposed to do, but do anything you damn well please. And I thought that was the best advice. And also I work with Catherine Chang Liu. She's out in California. She does wonderful work. And several other people. I mean, there's so many people that influence me. Ruth Mordecai, Yana Coffin.
Well, they're all impressive. Yeah.
Oh, there's such a great community up here, and people are so generous with their time and spirit. It's just great.
Mm-hmm. So it's safe to say, Terry, that you identify as an abstract artist. And I loved your comment. I'm going to let you share it. But earlier when we spoke, I loved your comment about your brain.
Oh, my abstract brain. Yeah, I do have an abstract brain. It just, there's no logic to it at all. But yeah, I started out doing realistic painting,
Mm-hmm.
and I got bored with it so quickly, even though I adore realistic painting. I think they're wonderful. But for me, I just get so bored trying to replicate, and I just always go off on tangents. So that's where I am. I just adore abstract work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you like to you like to play in that space of ambiguity, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not everybody's comfort zone, but I can appreciate that.
Well, it's not comfortable. It's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
It can be kind of anxiety producing sometimes. But
Well,
you know,
that's a good segue. I think we should lead into talking about your art practice and really what art making means to you. And I want to read a comment that you have posted on your website that really resonated with me. Art helps me channel my feelings out into the world, so I don't have to carry them inside myself. So let's talk about this a little bit. This is really the meat of the matter.
yeah, that was pretty revealing. I don't know why I said that. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, I think that a lot of us don't talk about everything we're feeling all the time, and I think for me, I think of artists as falling into different categories.
Mm-hmm.
And some people like to reflect what they see in the world, which is terrific. And some people like to create beauty, which is, thank God they do that.
Mm-hmm.
And other people like to speak out on social issues in the world. And then there's people like me that really just have to express themselves somehow and explore who we are as people and the human condition. And although that doesn't come out in our art or my art subject wise, because it's abstract, that's what's happening in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a longing that I think every human has. And mine is like right on the surface all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I use my art to calm myself down and, you know, explore what it means to be alive, I guess.
Mm-hmm. To channel your feelings, and really it's kind of all about healing, right?
Absolutely.
On so many
Yeah.
levels.
Absolutely.
I think also when we talked earlier, I was really taken by our conversation around vulnerability. And I'd love for you to comment a little bit more about that. I so appreciate that you're so revealing about your thought process, Terry.
Yeah, I think as humans, we're just vulnerable. And I think the more we allow ourselves to open up to that vulnerability,
mm-hmm.
for me, that helps me express myself in art.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to David White. He's a poet that many people may know. And he's had this online virtual conversation going. And he talks about vulnerability and that really learning how to live is based on being able to be vulnerable. And he talks about that we just have to move beyond ourselves. And that's where we need to be, because then that forces us to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And I think that process of trying to do that, it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there's always a road beckoning. There's always some road beckoning to us. And I think it's that beckoning and the longing that helps me create art.
Right. I get it. I get it. And giving yourself permission to let go and take risks. I mean, that's a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know at the end what we're going to get.
Right. And you know, when I go into the studio, it's so interesting to me because everybody's experience seems to be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And when I go into the studio, sometimes that first 20 minutes is really anxiety producing. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm thinking, oh, my brain is all over the place, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, my self-critic comes in and it says, oh, what are you doing painting? You don't know what you're doing, and blah, blah, blah. And then once I start to just make marks or put color, everything seems to calm down. And then once you start moving ahead, I feel like I'm flying. Mm-hmm. And that's where
I love that.
Great pleasure comes in.
I love that. I love that. That really sums it up. So Terry, let's talk about your current work. Mm-hmm. And we're going to show a piece titled Pilgrimage. And I'd love for you to describe kind of where you are, what your current journey is all about, and how you would describe your work.
Yeah. It's interesting because I mentioned before that when I was into photography, I went to Art New England in Vermont. Every summer they have these intensive workshops and retreats. And just last summer, I decided to go back again. But this time I went for abstract painting, and I worked with Timothy Hawksworth, who was here as part of the Get 'Em In artist residency program in Rocky Neck, which is a fabulous residency program.
Right.
And that really transformed my thinking around my painting. And it became obvious that I was giving up so quickly on paintings and thinking, oh, this one is terrible. I was working on this very big painting right from the day one. And at first I loved it. And then as time went on and I was working on it, I started hating it. And then for the next couple of days, I was saying to Timothy, you know what? I think I'm just going to tear it down because it was taking up the whole wall and start from scratch. So he very calmly suggested, well, don't make any rash decisions yet. Just hang in, move on to something else, and then go back, whatever. And I did. And it wound up that piece was really transforming for me because it almost felt autobiographical because there were so many layers to it. And it wound up that I loved it. So that whole process was a real learning experience for me to let go of judging at any given point whether your painting is good or not, and just let that go and let the process take care of itself.
It really takes a lot of courage too, right? I mean,
it does. You have to just have faith in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So let's talk about Pilgrimage.
Pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny. Some paintings take me forever. I can work on paintings for months. I'm not one of those people that pops paintings out really fast and works fast. I just admire those people so much. But every once in a while, a painting comes fast. And it's a joy when that happens. And that's what happened with Pilgrimage. It was actually an old painting. And I decided to paint over it. And it just went really fast. And it just went where it was supposed to go. And it took me. I didn't bring it anywhere. It took me. So, I'm happy with it.
You were flying.
I was flying, exactly.
That's your descriptor. You were flying.
I was in my spaceship.
Well, I want to acknowledge, Terry, that you and your husband, David, you've gone through a lot of change recently. And, you know, when we go through changes, that can also influence our work. Do you see that playing out?
I see it playing out in regards to it affects how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
My level of anxiety, my concern about where we're going to be, because we moved and it took us much longer than we expected to get into our new house. So I think it impacted me emotionally,
Sure.
and that always, that's my outlet, is to paint or to do collage or whatever.
Right. So therefore, if it impacts how you're feeling, it's going to impact how you're creating art, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about some of your other creative endeavors. For a self-professed non-marketer, I think you've been so creative with respect to your witty cards and with respect to your wearable art. If you could talk to us a little bit more about that, that would be great.
The wearable art is really a friend of mine, Donna Castleton. She's a wonderful artist locally as well.
Mm-hmm.
She has a lot of her work on products, on clothing. Well, she's a wonderful wearable artist. She
is.
Fabulous clothing, and but a lot of her paintings were on pieces of fabric or bags or pillows and things like that. And she was kind enough to share with me a company that does that. Mm-hmm. And she works with them. So I contacted them, and they select certain paintings and decide whether or not that design would transfer well onto other products. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. I mean, it's very interesting to see your painting on a product that's like a pillow or something. Mm-hmm. And it's just a fun thing. I don't really feel that I'm marketing my art on products, but it's kind of cool to just see it. And my cards, I was always jealous of people who are so disciplined that they do a painting a day or a drawing a day. They're so disciplined in their practice, and I always admired that. So a couple of years ago, I said, I'm going to do something, anything, every day. So what it was I decided I'm just going to draw silly, simple things. I'm not going to erase anything. I'm just going to do it. But I have to do it before I go to bed, no matter what. So I did that. So for 163 days, every night I drew what wound up to be these people that are kind of mixed up. They have, their eyes are in the wrong place, or they have three hands, or, they're in kind of funny dancing positions. So they were just so much fun. They actually made me laugh. So I turned some of them into cards, and they're just fun. They still make me laugh when I look at them.
They make me laugh too. And I want to share with you a card that you were so kind to send to me. And I love this message. And I think this is a wonderful segue as we wrap up here. All the art of living lies in the fine mingling of holding on and letting go. Your print is so tiny, it's really hard for me to read. But I absolutely adore this card, and I don't know if I can give it up. I think I'm going to buy a bunch from you, actually. It'll become my signature card. So, Terry, what's next for you? Tell us what's next. What's up? And also share with us your URL.
My URL is just my name, Terry Del Percio, and it's Terry Del Percio. What's next? I don't know. I just, I'm not good at planning art. I can plan for other things, but I have a hard time planning for art. So I'm going to let the process take me where it wants to take me.
I like that. That's great. I mean, that just sums up everything we've been talking about. Letting go and seeing what happens, right?
Absolutely. Letting go is like the lesson of a lifetime, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Well, for our listeners, I want to say that we've been talking to Terry Del Percio Piamonte. Terry, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself, honestly. The big reveal.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. For our listeners, this recording can be heard on 1623 Studios social media platforms, to include YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Channel 12. I'm Kristine Fisher. It's been my pleasure. See you next time.